Order. We come now to the adjournment. The whip to move.
I beg to move. The House do now adjourn, sir.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. May I gently appeal to honourable and right honourable members who might be leaving the chamber? I'm bound to say leaving the chamber quite unaccountably in the light of the parliamentary feast that remains to be consumed, to do so quickly and quietly. The question is that this House do now adjourn. Mr. Dennis Skinner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for allowing this debate today, because it's a very important subject about HS2 in my constituency. I remember quite clearly the statement that was made by the then Secretary of State for Transport announcing HS2 for the North, and I asked him then whether it would be going through Derbyshire Dales, and of course the answer was no. But one thing was certain: it was going through the very heavily populated eastern side of Derbyshire, and that meant there was going to be some trouble. And sure enough, during the course of the past few months, I have been trying to deal with that trouble at places like Tipshelf and other parts of Bolsover, meeting people, an industrial estate at Tipshelf owned by a firm employing nearly 100 people, where the line goes straight through his factory. Little did I know, however, that in the course of the past few weeks, a decision was made that was going to supersede everything that I thought about HS2. And that was the decision by Mr. Higgins, in charge of HS2, who decided that it would be a good idea that in Sheffield, that's built on 7 hills, to have a station in the middle of Sheffield. A station, in a moment, a station that is a dead-end station, which means that the trains go in and come out the same way, whereas previously it was going to be where the old steel industry was, now called Meadowhall, a massive shopping area that was a flat area. Most of us assumed that Meadowhall would be the ideal spot. At this point, I'll give way to my honourable friend.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. We have a similar situation, in actual fact, in Coventry, but if you look at Warwickshire, environmentally, it will desecrate Warwickshire, it will affect a lot of villages. Many people, for example, in Coventry, who could be affected by this, will not get any compensation. I know of the Elliott family, for example, who are in that situation. But more importantly, Birmingham benefits. Coventry could lose out here on an investment, and that could happen to the honourable gentleman's constituency.
I've got no doubt at all that Birmingham is favoured because it's part of that new-fangled powerhouse, whereas Coventry is not regarded as such. In my area, it means that the powerhouse is based in Sheffield, and therefore they requested from Mr. David Higgins that they wanted a station in the city built on 7 hills, and they got one. Little did I realise that although I was doing meetings about the HS2 and voting against it, the truth is that it was like a bombshell. And it meant that this argument about localism versus powerhouses means that the powerhouse wins every time. It's preposterous that they didn't even consider what would happen in Derbyshire the moment that they designated Sheffield as a station. And that meant the whole line had to be redrawn. And the result was that another line then had to be found through Derbyshire, and the net result was that it's going through the middle of Newton, a small village in my area, where more than 30 houses are going to be demolished. The Blackpool Parish Council is going to be cut in half, and the net result is all because of the Sheffield decision. Now, I'm not the only one that's had an adjournment debate like this. This is the third that we've had about this particular business of Sheffield. The reason why my right honourable friend, the member for Doncaster North, was on his feet the other Monday talking about what was happening when the route moves from the station, not Meadowhall, towards his constituency of Doncaster North. And that means it's going to go through Mexborough and destroy houses there as well. And the reason why my right honourable friend, the member for Rother Valley, who sits up there, got an adjournment debate a few weeks before, was based upon the same matter. Sheffield had got the station, and therefore they were going to go to a village called Bramley and several others in his area, and the result is going to be havoc for all those areas. Doncaster, North, Rother Valley, and now Derbyshire. And that's why the Speaker gave us the adjournment debate, because he knows that it's a very important issue. And I remember that when I read the debate, the Minister concerned referred to the fact that when he was interjected upon, right at the very end, by my right honourable friend, the ex-leader of the Labour Party, when he asked him whether Meadowhall was still viable on the table, the Minister said yes. Now, I hope that that is the case, because he, Higgins, and all the rest of them, the Secretary of State, have got to get their heads together and stop this nonsense of allowing the station in Sheffield. This is going to create more havoc than Hitler did in the Second World War in our area. My father used to tell me as a little kid, he says, well, go and have a look at that big hole the bombs dropped last night. And it used to be near the railway line, but he never hit it. Why did he want to hit it? Because Claycross diverted into two lines, one the Midland line and one the Erewash line. Now, I have to say to the Minister, has he ever considered the idea of starting at Tolton, going straight up the Erewash line that's there already? It's used for traffic going to Nottingham and also for freight, and it could then connect up to the Midland line at Claycross, and therefore Newton would not be affected whatsoever. In other words, it would be a slow line like it is now, believe me. All those 30 minutes have gone. Can you remember the 30 minutes when they announced it? The business people would be able to get to London 30 minutes quicker. And they're going to spend that. Well, the current cost is £78 billion. I know if I'd got £78 billion and I was in government, I'd be giving a lot of that to the National Health Service and giving some more to social care. And I would have electrification of the Sheffield line. Why don't they do that? And if they do that with the Sheffield to London Midland line, then they get the benefit of what would be applicable if they had HS2.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. It is a very interesting point, because high-speed rail could actually affect the frequency on the West Coast Main Line, for example. And secondly, nobody knows exactly what high-speed rail would cost in terms of passengers' fares. That's never been spelled out to anybody before. So, as I say, it can affect us in a number of ways in Coventry, but he was quite right when he mentioned the region, Birmingham as the regional capital. All the benefits will go to Birmingham, and more importantly, to get Birmingham on board, they're going to establish a skills college. There's enough skills in the West Midlands and the East Midlands to fulfil that objective.
Ms. Skinner.
I absolutely agree with my honourable friend. He has been with me in the lobbies when we voted. But little did I know when I was voting that I would be later on arguing this case for the beleaguered people of Newton. It is horrific when you think about it, that here they were, playing no part in the HS2 argument. Then suddenly a decision was made by Mr. Higgins, no doubt supported by the ministers concerned, who announced the Sheffield station. And the net result is we've got these two lines. One is the slow track that starts on the Erewash line, finds its way through the middle of Newton, and then joins the track later on. It's a nonsense, the very idea that they thought they needed a branch line when they could have carried on at Towton and gone straight through to Sheffield on the Midland line. It's almost unbelievable that the government has fallen into this trap. And that's why I'm pleased that this morning I was able to say to the Secretary of State today in question time whether he would meet the Newton people, because as you can imagine, immediately they found out that they were in the firing line, then they had a group of people immediately set to the task of finding out what was going to happen and trying to make sure that it's prevented. When I went there the other week, there was more than 300 people in the old folks' hall. There was 150 people standing. It's a tiny village, but this is the enormity of their response. And they kept the doors open for the people on the streets to hear what was taking place. It was the biggest meeting I've had since the general election, and it was all done on the spur of the moment. So I asked the minister concerned that we want to bring these people down, and they will ask the minister very sensibly about ensuring that instead of going to Newton, that the train carries on from Towton and joins the Claycross Midland line on its way to Sheffield. It won't make a ha'porth of difference about the time, because quite frankly it's going to lose time on that route anyway. But it means that the government would not have to develop a branch line called the Newton Spur that turns off to the left. That wouldn't have to be done. But the most sensible thing is for electrification of the Midland line, and we're home and dry, and we'd probably get trains today travelling even faster. So I want the minister to be able to report to the Secretary of State about this discussion today, because it can be resolved. But they do have to ensure that the Meadowhall idea is continued with. And it means not only resolving the problem in Newton, but it also means resolving the problem in Mexborough, but it also means he could solve the problem in Bramley, in Rother Valley as well. Those are the things, in my opinion, that he could do most sensibly to solve this problem. Have I done a quarter of an hour? And so I've got 2 minutes.
1 minute, 20.
I hope that the minister will take on board everything I've said today. I've not tried to hide the facts. Everything I've said in this chamber today has been based upon the knowledge I've obtained going to the meetings with my Newton colleagues, who believe that they have got a storm to deal with, and they came out of the blue, never realising that it would be a problem. So you've got the fast line going on to Meadowhall, the slow line dwindling its way. Let's keep it away from Newton, make sure they move from Towton. Thank you very much. Let's hope there's a satisfactory conclusion.
I call the Parliament.